everybody. Welcome back to B&H Event Space. I'm Monica Sigmon.
And I'm Michael Taylor.
And we are so happy to be here. And yes, I'm getting my voice back. Actually, I sound great today. I have laryngitis. So I've pulled Michael in to help today and do a little year-end recap, but more importantly, really start talking about 2024. I am so excited about next year. Like I always say that, but really I feel like next year is going to be our best year.
That's great. I'm excited too.
Awesome. So what I want to do is we're going to get started because we've got a lot to go through today. And let me share my screen. Can you believe, Michael, this is our last webinar of 2023?
I know, it's gone by quickly.
Oh, do you think they'll have us back? I mean, with a title slide like this, why could they not?
Yeah, even with that, I think it's 50-50, but you know.
Oh my God. Okay. I tell you guys, we're coming in rare form. Last webinar I recorded with 3 Dr. Peppers and me. And so that was a fun ride. And today I have prednisone steroids. So we're going to
Which isn't good for her.
We're going to be moving really fast. So buckle up. This is how you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Don't bother messaging Michael. You can find him, but he will not answer any messages.
Or check your local urgent care.
We have a portrait studio here in Williamsburg, Virginia. And if you haven't been a part of the B&H event space over the last year, then I invite you to come over to their YouTube channel. And hopefully my little controller will work here and do a little scroll and just type in Sigmon, and you're going to see all of the content that we've recorded for B&H this year. In fact, I think there's even more than that. But we've talked about sales goals. We've talked about everything from the very beginning of getting ideas and inspiration, how to take those to execution, how to then build out storyboards for concept shoots. We've talked about design sessions, studio processes, sales processes. I mean, we've covered a ton this year. And so it's all free on the B&H Event Space YouTube channel. And it's all free because B&H believes in you and because Sony can make this happen and can allow us to put time and effort into each one of these webinars for you guys. So we're really, really proud of our of the body of work we've put together. We hope that you guys find it useful. So,
you know, and I just want to say that just because it's free doesn't mean it doesn't have value.
Correct.
You know, and because we sometimes lose that perspective, you know, and everything that especially Monica's been talking about throughout this year and last year is how we run our business, you know, and we think a lot about that because that's our source of income. That's how our main drive is. That's
well, it's our only source of income.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not teaching, it's not education. It's that's the core of how we survive in this world. So, you know, it's really important to us. So, and Monica's been great about sharing all this detail that we put into our studio. So hope you guys take the time to look through it, especially as you get ready for this new year.
I'm so excited about 24. I know 24 is going to be Sigmon Taylor's best year. I am so pumped. We're making some changes.
Well, I can't wait to get older and find out.
We're making some changes. Okay, so the first thing I want to just put in your brain is what's your metric? My friend Jen Halenga in Brooklyn and I talk all the time. She has a great Instagram channel called The Ways of the Dog. She's a pet photographer. She started her pet portrait business 2 years ago. She's been in portrait business forever, but she's phenomenal. So go follow her, The Ways of the Dog. But one thing she and I talk about all the time is, yeah, but what's our metric for success? Because so many photographers are always talking, myself included, about sales goals and numbers. And that's not the only metric for success all of the time. So it could be money, it could be art, it could be portfolio building, it could be a lot of different things.
So you're saying metric is like how you judge you're
like
being
the
successful?
ruler. Yeah,
Okay.
what your ruler is. So
Okay.
you could, I don't want people to say, oh, I didn't hit X dollars in 2023, so it wasn't a successful year. For us, we did a lot of things this year that weren't money generating, but they were successful because the metric for success was different for me. Like launching the new line Gilded, which we talked about. That launch was about getting samples in and getting work to show on social and the website. So it wasn't about collecting a lot of sales up front. It was about getting bodies in the door and getting the work out there. That was my metric for success. So that's really important. I want you guys to think about that. And also, we don't do, well, you don't do any of it, but I don't do resolutions, but I do. I knew that was going to come out wrong. But I do a word of the year, which you don't do. So I don't do resolutions because I'll break them, but I do like a word of the year. And for 2 years, I guess, my word was intentional. And it's still one of my favorite words because I try and do everything in the business has to be intentional, like it's on purpose. It's not by accident, which if you've watched the webinars across this year, you'll know that probably to our detriment, sometimes I overplan and calculate. But then after 2 years of intention, my word moved to conviction. So I felt like we had built all these processes out, and now it was our turn to really like believe in it and go forward and plant our flag, and that worked really well. So I want you guys to be thinking about your word of the year and what that's going to mean, not just for your business but for your life also. No, I don't have my word yet. I've been thinking about it very hard. There's a couple contenders, but I haven't made the final whatever.
So do we get a hint?
No.
Okay.
So all that being said, metrics of success, money is important because if we don't have money, we can't make the art, and we can't provide for our families, and we can't give back to our communities. So we do have to be aware of making money. And like you guys know how I feel about this, no more starving artists. And so I'm going to start our program today by talking about very intentional ways of creating sales goals and tracking sales goals so that you are feeling in more control of your numbers. And then after we, glaze your eyes over with spreadsheets, then we'll come back and we'll finish up on some pretty things. And we'll talk about your art goals and your work goals for the year.
This is a really pretty thing here, that portrait.
Oh, thanks.
No, it's really nice.
Can somebody write the date down, please?
And the year.
Michael Taylor said I had a really pretty portrait. All right. Wow. It's a full moon out there, folks. Okay. So let me come back over. I'm going to share my new screen. And okay. So we have to look backwards before we can look forward. So I like to just suggest that you go back. Maybe you're a new business, so you won't have as much data, but maybe you've been around a few years and we have some data to look at. So these are just fictional numbers. Basically, I needed something easy for math to show these examples. And excuse me. And I'm going to walk you through a lot of information in a very short amount of time. I don't want you to panic. Number one, if you're going to Imaging USA, I'm teaching a full day on this pre-con the Saturday before the convention starts. And if you aren't, or even if you are and want more of it, we're going to do a whole master class on this starting in February. So but I do want to give you this because it's good information. So what I want you to do first is go back through your historical data, and I want your sales numbers in a spreadsheet for the year. And that's without tax, because everybody always says like, oh, well, with tax, my number is X, but that's not your money. Tax is like being held over here in an account for you to go give the government. We want to know the sales that you're collecting for yourself and your business. And then if you want to like make some notes, you can do that over here. Maybe you were part-time, maybe you moved into a studio, COVID was a disaster, whatever, right? So just kind of a nice little quick at a glance look. This is our dollars, plus or minus.
Excuse me.
It's like a TB word over here. Plus or minus the dollars of your previous year, and then what your percentage over the previous year was, plus or minus. I like to color code in my free time. So green is good, red is not
Yeah,
good.
it looks like Christmas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other important thing I want to mention here is we're running in accrual mode. When you run your profit and loss statement from your QuickBooks or whatever you're using, we're not looking at cash, we're looking at accrual, because you might have sold $1,000 worth of portraits today. I want to know what your sales are, not that you're getting $100 today and $100 next month and $100 the month after that. That's for your accountant, that's for taxes, that's for all of the other things. I want to know sales goals. So that's why it's really important to run this set of data in accrual mode, not cash. So, all right, so we've seen the numbers, right? So let's just say this is where our 2023 is finishing up. And then what I like to do next is take this annual number and break it down by month. Okay. And you might have 10 years of data, you might have a couple years. It doesn't matter, but I want an average. What I'm looking at here is to see, okay, in 2021, this studio did $80,000. Well, in January, they did $4,000, which is 5% of their entire year they did in January. And I think that's important because we come off of the holidays, which is usually our craziest time of year. January, we're recovering, we ate too much, we're still sleeping, we're at conventions, we're doing all these things. So we're like, January's a wash. Well, January still can accomplish a good amount of money for you. And so you have to know that in December. You have to know that before you get started out of the gate. So the specific dollar number isn't exactly what I'm looking for at this point of the planning stage. What I want to know is the percentage. So what percent of your sales did each month and quarter contribute? So for this studio, 2021, 2022, and 2023, here is what these months averaged out. And as expected, right, fourth quarter was the biggest quarter of the year, 36% versus 22. Excuse me. So it's a good idea to kind of see, and this is going to come into play, like we talked about last webinar a couple weeks ago, when you look at your building out your full year marketing calendar, you want to know what areas are slower, what areas are busy, what areas you need to maintain, where you saw a drop, whatever, and then you can overlay that marketing calendar on this set of worksheets to know where we can plug in and what we have to promote. Okay, so we have all of these percentages. We've built our spreadsheet to do the math for us. So when we type this number in, it's reading to the year-to-date number and giving you a percent. It's spreadsheet math.
It's what?
It's spreadsheet math. It's like sorcery. It's a lot. Spreadsheet people know how to do it.
Okay.
What?
No, I just think, I think a lot of people tend to just slough off different parts of the year, or like you said,
Yes.
January or February or something like that. But, one thing to realize is that every dollar is important, and
Every session
is important. Everything that you do, every
meeting.
every interaction that you have with your community and your clientele is important. And I think sometimes we get busy with other things in life, and by being able to see something like this, we really have a good idea of how we're keeping up, or how we're getting ahead, or how we're filling in this blank spaces. Are you going to talk about, that's what you're talking about in the future now, right?
Yeah, I think we decided the last time I should probably show you my keynote ahead of time,
Which we didn't do.
which we didn't do again,
Okay.
but we're gonna roll.
Sorry, I was just trying to help.
So no, it's good. So after you figure out a couple years worth of percentages, and the nice thing about percentages, okay, you got to sit up here though, because I could like get a thing like a whiplash. So the nice thing about percentages is that even if you have a bad year, the tendency, the flow of your business probably doesn't change a whole lot, unless it's like COVID when you're going and then you stopped, right? But like typically even a slow year, you're going to follow that curve of your business. So that's what's nice about percentages. So then what I do is I take however many years I have. In this case, we've got 3 years for this fictitious studio, and we take these averages of the percentages. So I've rounded everything to make this nice and clean without decimal points. That's why it's not adding up exactly. It should be like 5.33, but I didn't want to make everybody blow their brains out
So
on the,
you like
on the webinar
this
today.
rounded.
So this is rounded to no decimal points. But anyway, what it's doing is it's saying, okay, September of 2021, we did 8%, we did 7% in 22, 8%. That averages out to be 7%. It's actually 7 point whatever, but you get the idea, right? So are you following? Because if you're not following, they're not following. So I got to make sure.
So even if I can follow and understand, everybody should.
Yes.
Okay.
So we've got an average of what all of our Decembers contribute to our business and what each quarter contributes to our business, and that equals 100%. So no matter what sales volume we did that year, we know that on average, May contributes 9%, right? Or whatever it is for you. This is really good too when you go to talk to a bank, if you need a line of credit or something like that. I remember years ago when we applied for our first line of credit, and we applied in like April or May or something, June, maybe middle of the year. And so, or April, maybe our numbers were kind of flat. And the banker was like, wait, what's happening? And I could pull out spreadsheets to say, look, we do 42% of our income between Labor Day and Christmas. And they were like, oh, okay, wait a minute. And I knew that number, 42%. And so that can help you also be, speak intelligently about your business. Okay, so after we get the average of the percentages, then bear with me, we're just going to add on a couple of columns over here. I need to remove my inspector. There we go. Okay, so the average from the column before, we're just going to simply copy and paste over to this column. Okay. And then that's going to help us map out our 2024 number. Got me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just making sure. So then we can say, okay, in 2024, what's the number? What do we want to make? Right? And so just say for this fictitious studio, they've decided that they're going to do 120,000 next year in sales. So they're going to plug that number in down here, right? And then you're going to multiply with your crazy spreadsheet sorcery. You're going to be able to take 120,000 times 5% and gives you your January projection of 6,000. Okay, so 120,000 times 6% February means you have to bring in 7,200 in February. Are your eyes glazing over?
No.
You're good? Okay.
No.
Webland interweb people out there, if you have questions, go ahead and start throwing them in the Q&A, and we'll take a look as we change screens, because it's a lot of information. But like I said, come next year, we're gonna have more opportunities to learn this in more detail and more slowly. But you can get a lot just from this to understand the concepts. We'll also have worksheets available after the first of the year that you can just plug and play with the formulas built in, which will be great. Again, we're running this in accrual, not cash. We're not cutting sales tax, anything like that. But you're going to go ahead and fill out your sales goals by the month now, because we've taken our average percent over our historical data and we've multiplied it by our proposed goal, or desired sales, I should say. And that gives us each month. Okay, so guess what we do next? I've got to move my Zoom windows out of the way here. Hang on. So now that we know how much we have to make each month, now we have a tracking worksheet. People are like, I got into photography to take pictures. Why is she mathing me? It's so important. I come from a background of retail, and this is so helpful because we had to track every day, every evening at the end of the day, what we had made, where we were week to date over last year, month to date over last year, everything, all the time. It was numbers. And this has been really helpful in our studio because this is how we track it. So then you'll have a spreadsheet and you'll bring over these two columns here, our column from here, the 2024 goal and the percentage. We just carried those two columns over to here. And then now this is a worksheet in which you will track your sales. So as you finish January, let's say you have an $8,000 month in January, it's going to say, yay, you're up $2,000. You are at 6.7% instead of 5%. This is fantastic. Good. Yay, you, right? So, and then it's going to start tallying down here. And so then let's say in February, you only make 5,000. And then it's going to start tallying, and my formula is not working yet because I redid everything about 10 minutes before the call. But anyway, all of this will populate for you and you'll get to see where you are at any given time. Okay. Damn, can't believe I forgot those formulas. You get the idea. Are we good? Yeah. So then you see where you're falling down, right? If you want to be totally extra, which I know you guys do, then you'll do this by week. You'll drill down to the month level, but then you'll go to the week level, which is a whole other operation. Because if you're traveling, if you have vacation, like we're on the road a lot for work, we're not physically in the studio. So I have to take these month goals and really say, well, in March, we have to do 7%, but we're only here physically in the studio for 2 weeks. Is that realistic, or do I need to reallocate that percentage a little bit? How many weeks are we actually shooting in the studio? It's not 52. So where do we look at those? Where does that have to map out? So all of that comes into play also. And again, that's going to be a much more detailed class next year, but there is always the availability to just drag this out ad nauseum, a la Monica, as Michael would say. I like to know the numbers.
But in December, you really want them to start thinking about next year.
Yeah.
You know, instead of start thinking about this in February or March. You know, so.
Exactly. By February or March, you've already lost 10, 12% of your year if you're not
careful.
Yeah. Or in the studio's case, 10 or 12. Some people have more seasonal, some people have a great headshot business in January. Okay, so now, like I said, we can go to the week, but we don't have time for that in today's call. So I'm going to keep going with this example of the month. So once we get our tracking goal, now we have to look at our sessions. So how are we going to come up with $6,000 in January? Well, that's where a session tally can be helpful, session tracking. So here's where we're going to take your monthly sales goals, which we came up with on the previous sheet, and we're going to define divide that by our average sale. So what have we historically been averaging in our sales? The opposite way you could do that would be to say, how many weeks am I working? How many sessions do I want to work every week, and get your average that way? So you have two options. For the purpose of this example, I'm using our historical data for this supposed example studio of $1,000 average sale. So suffice it to say, if your goal is $120,000 and your average sale is $1,000, then you have to do 120 sessions, right?
Mhm.
Now tell me if you're not following.
No, I'm following,
Okay,
but
'cause
you need to divide, you have
Oh,
to,
okay. What?
well, there's different type of sessions.
Yeah,
so you
oh
got
God,
different-
yeah, we're getting there.
Okay,
Yes. So this is, let's
you're
assume,
just trying to make it simple.
yes,
Okay.
studio only doing one kind of session and their average is $1,000.
Okay.
Like we do family sessions, that's a different average than a headshot or a commercial session. Black Label is typically a higher average than a family session. So I've got all of that down to the minutia, but for the purpose of this example, I just want to rough this in because this gives everybody enough information to be dangerous to like get started on thinking. So, so then when we look back at our percentages and we look at our goals, we can say, okay, if we need 21,000, almost 22,000 in Q1, which if we come back to our monthly tracking goal, we got that number from right here, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so our session tally comes over here, and then I make, because I know I need 22 sessions, I make 22 boxes. And this is my visual aid. This gets printed, it gets hung in our kitchen over the microwave. And as we book a session, we start plugging in names. And then we just handwrite them over the kitchen. And then every once in a while, we'll print a new one out. If I know somebody comes every year, they've talked about coming, and we haven't had them on the books yet, they go over here. When they get booked, they can come over to the appropriate column. And then you can keep track and you can say, wow, I wish my sales average was higher because I want to do 120 sessions in 1 year, right? Or whatever, make your adjustments. There's some extra boxes to give you a little bonus there. I also color code ours. So back to what you were talking about, different kinds of sessions with different averages. Ours are like families are one color, executives are another color. And so we kind of color code these as we go along. So that's how all of this works. And these are just a couple of tools that I would encourage people to think about as you get ready for next year. And like I said, we can go all the way down to the weekly breakdown. And then that's where you would mark out the weeks that you'll be out of town or not in the studio, whatever. Okay. So real quick, look at your historical data. Look at how much each month contributes to your business. Then take that average, project it out to your 2024 sales goal, whatever that might be. And then that's going to give you the numbers you need to hit every month. And then get a tracking worksheet. We'll have this one available in January, hopefully before, but maybe January. And then update this at the end of every month at a minimum. We do ours weekly, which is a whole other set of spreadsheets. And that way we always know where we are and if we have to pick up a session or not. Okay, that was a lot. I hope we still have people with us. Math is not as fun as everything else. I'm going to hit a couple other points. We're done with spreadsheets, so that's good. And now we're going to come back over to the
But,
creative side of our brain.
Before we leave this, so, you're way more into this than I am, but I've always realized this was important. And when we had separate businesses, I always did all this.
What?
And I tell you what, it is remarkable. Like even I tracked, I used to sell sitting certificates, and it was amazing how from year to year, how those averages were very much the same,
Yeah.
at different times of the year. So
It also gives you a chance to look back and see what didn't work, right?
Yeah,
Like
everything doesn't work.
everything doesn't work, and that's okay. At
Mhm.
least you're oh God, are we still on share? No. At least you're trying, at least you're doing different things and making more informed decisions as each year goes by, because you know, well, gosh, these I like doing these, but they're not making me a lot of money. So maybe I need to consolidate them or block schedule. That's what we're going to be doing with headshots this year. We're not ready to give them up, but they're not efficient, so they don't feel profitable. So we're going to consolidate them and block schedule them so that they're done like at in groups. And so then we're efficient and we're keeping more of that money in our pocket. And then we can strategize where during the slow parts of our year, we can plug things like that in when we do our marketing calendar.
Well, the most important thing about this is that, our photography business, it takes time to make the money. It is not an instant thing. So, it's scheduling, it's booking people. I mean, there's this whole thing about getting known in the community, all that other kind of stuff. But then, it takes time from point A to point B to point C to where you're getting your money. So you have to plan this out.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly right.
Regardless of how creative you are or whatever it is,
That's exactly right. It's a
know.
cash flow conversation, and our product takes a long time to turn around.
Mhm.
And so we made the decision several years ago. We were taking payments and installments for some dumb reason, probably something we heard in a class or something. And then I was like, people are asking if they should pay in full. And I'm saying, no, we take half now and half later. That's the stupidest thing. So take the payment and that will change your cash flow. So you just need to understand those things about your business. Are you getting half now and then half when it's delivered? That's great. That's fine. But then when is the money coming into your business? And just know kind of when your turnarounds
Well,
are.
we ease into it by saying, well, that would be normal.
That would be normal. One of my favorite phrases.
Because people don't want to be weird or odd or
Abnormal.
People want to be.
So when they say, well, do I pay for that in full today? We just say, yeah, that's normal. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, okay. They give us their credit card.
Yeah. So
Now we do have some people, because
which
we
is
have
fine.
some sales that are
And you can tell when people are going,
right.
that's
And
fine.
then you can split it up. But if they don't have to, then it's healthier cash flow for your business. We got on that. Okay, let's
Well,
go
it's
back
about the
over
value
to
of this.
the value. Okay, so I think we've beat the dead horse about numbers. So once we look at the numbers, then we have some decisions to make. We have some audits to do. And we like to audit in 3 areas. I don't know if you know this.
I was curious what
we know this, but we audit our business in 3 areas every year. The first is gear, right? Like this is where we decide, okay, what do we need to invest in? What do we need to upgrade? What projects are we wanting to tackle this year? Does that necessitate new gear? We like to know that before we go to imaging, before we hit a trade show floor, because then all bets are off, right? We just are like, of course we need this. We'll find a use for it. So super helpful. As you guys know, we are just so proud to be affiliated with Sony. And I always remind people that we shot Sony a long time before our professional relationship started with them. They are having amazing sales right now. And if you need any help with that, please message me, reach out to our friends at B&H, because it's year end and it's a great time. If you made extra money this year, it's a great way to talk with your accountant to use up some of that money and invest in some glass and some beautiful gear that we know will help you take your work to the next level. So gear is our first audit. Our second audit is processes. And I have to put this in honor of Derek. He's sick today, but this is, you guys, I've seen this a million times. We're going to have a workshop entirely on this next year. It's a 6-month class where we will help you build out processes specifically for your studio. If starting from the brand of your business, how to build it, how to cultivate it, how to communicate it, to the phone call, to the web inquiry, to the design session, to the printed pieces, the collateral, the session preparation, the session itself, the sales appointment. Every single step of our process is laid out, mapped out, choreographed very intentionally, and we will help you do the same. So if you go to our website, which is just sigmontaylor.edu.com, I don't know if Danny maybe could put that in the chat, then you can sign up for our newsletter. You'll be the first to know. You can also just send me an email to that email address on the site, and just put rubric class in the memo and or in the subject line. I'll make sure you get the information, but it's a really great intensive. And by the end of the class, you feel so empowered. I've watched it completely change people's businesses. But when you go through that process, you'll also see, oh, you know what? I really can, whoa, that was weird. I can really benefit by going back and building out things like storyboards and mood boards and things like that. Go back, like I said, and look at the YouTube channel that we've built with B&H. There's a whole webinar just on this one little tiny part of that rubric. So this will identify for you areas that you need to build out. If you have a physical space, maybe you need to do a physical audit and walk through your studio and just say, are we putting our best foot forward? Is everything clean? Is it painted? What needs to be refreshed? And then when we do that, we take a legal pad and a clipboard, single spaced, and then I put all of that on a Trello board, and I put it into categories of what can be done in 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, 6 months. And then I color code it out by job. So if it's something Michael's going to get done, it gets orange. If it's me, it gets red. If it's contracted out, then it gets a different color. And then we just start ticking off all of those things. And so the gear audit, the systems audit, and the physical audit are critically important to get your year off to the right start and to back up your sales goals. Okay, so enough of all of the business drama, and let's talk about what kind of art you want to make next year. So we talked quickly about metrics for success, and maybe this year you want to come out with a new portrait line. Maybe you need to expand your portfolio. Maybe you want to update your website or try something new. We launched Gilded this year. It's our first new look since we did Black Label 5 years ago. It's a couple sessions we've shot in the last few months, and it's being very well received. And I think this is going to be a big component of our business for next year. So that was an important metric for me this year, to get Gilded off the ground. It's been in my brain for a year. And so I will count that as a check in that column. So another thing that I think you and I try to really be intentional about are artist projects and our creative work. And so what I want to do is turn this part of the call over to you to talk about the project that you've been working on this past year. People have mostly just heard from me this year talking about business and numbers, and I want to talk about kind of getting into their creative brain and setting their goals for what they want to accomplish in their art for, sorry, I thought we were on that slide. It's on the, what they want to accomplish for their art for 2024. So you have a project, and I'm just going to let you know about the time. We're going to keep it moving. Michael's awesome about, he's like the best lighting person in the world. And he gets really excited his first couple slides. And then by slide 5 or 6, he'll be like, and here's another one, same thing. Here's another one. And I'm like, in the background, pick up the pace. So you take it for granted what you do is what I'm trying to say, that you take for granted that it's so easy, but there's a lot of thought and detail that goes into what you do. And so we're going to hopefully,
we don't have time to go.
but we're going to hear a little bit of your thought processes. So I'm going to rush through the first part of your slides because they've already seen this part. Road work is what you're working on now, but it started during COVID, this idea, because you were bored. And while I was doing the Art of Motion project, you called Jamestown Yorktown Foundation and said, I want to photograph. And we know you guys don't have guests coming through the museums right now, but I want to photograph people behind the scenes that make the Jamestown Yorktown Foundation work. People who are responsible for the success of this museum. And I want to photograph them in their context, doing what they do. And we think that this will be really helpful to your organizations to raise money, because donors like to see what their money is going towards, right? Mm-hmm. So the museum jumped all over this. They gave you your own exhibition. We have a webinar on this already that people can go back and watch in more detail, but I'm kind of just laying the groundwork in 15 seconds as opposed to 15 minutes if I let you do it. And so that got you back. You've done this for years, but that kind of got you back in the, yeah, I love photographing environmentally, people in their own environment.
Well, I've always loved that, but this just putting it into a project like form,
right,
was helpful.
So then I forgot that we didn't take a picture of this, but then we bought an Airstream this last summer, and we are having so much fun. And so Michael, we stayed at a place in our Airstream where this gentleman, who is the nicest guy, unassuming, and probably a gazillionaire, but works for every penny because he provides all of the firewood for all of the businesses, all of the restaurants, all of the lumber for all of the construction. He's got hundreds of acres of forest, and he lumbers. What's the?
I don't know, but he does provide the firewood for many of the restaurants in the Charlottesville area.
Yeah.
But he also has a big farm. He also has a small campground that he runs. He works for the Department of Energy for the state of Virginia. It's so easy to travel through a countryside and see these small little places and see the people that live there and, slough them off a little bit. Yeah. It's like, it's just.
Well, I mean, we just went for a weekend because we were still trying to learn how to Airstream.
How to survive.
Survive in the wild.
With only 2 televisions, folks. I'm going to tell you.
In the wild. And so we were just like about laying low, right? And our first thing was when we backed in, we realized that you ran over a cable or something, and we disconnected the whole thing. So this gentleman came over in his golf cart. He was so nice, and he fixed it for us and laughed at us, and we started a conversation. And I think that was really the moment that we just thought, we are really going to like this, because generally I don't like people. And I don't really want to I want to go out of town to just be quiet and private and off the grid. But he was so wonderful. And then you were like, oh my God, did you see his face and his overalls? I really want to photograph him. And I was like, okay, but we didn't bring our gear, but you had your Sony A7C. And so I say we didn't bring our gear, but we always have that fun little camera. So you were like, I'm just going to do it. So you asked him if you could photograph him, and we had no lights, no reflectors, no nothing. And you asked him not to change his clothes, anything. We wanted to just do it and tell a very honest story. So that's the beginning of road work. That was your first road work portrait. Now I'll let you talk.
So
if I need a cough drop mainly.
So, it came into my head that, we do meet people when we travel, and they're interesting. And a lot of times it's really the highlight of our trip. And because we get to spend this extra time with these folks that are interesting or passionate or have a lot of stories to tell about their life. So we've gone up, my son lives up in New York City. We've gone up there for Sony quite a bit. And so, you know, I would go through the city and have my camera with a 24mm lens, which is my favorite, a Sony G Master 24mm lens.
I have to train him the right way.
Yeah.
You have to say G Master. And also, you're shooting with the A7R5 all the time. We just, on that first portrait, we didn't have the A7R5,
Right.
but you take your A7, you have a nice little kit now that you take.
But, you know, I would have gear so that, you know, in my mind is, hey, I really want to start making portraits of people when we travel. And going through New York City, if I ran across someone I thought was interesting, you know, I would go back and just say and ask them, hey, can I do a quick portrait? And almost no one turned me down. It was amazing. So I decided that when we traveled, I needed to get more intentional about it. So I started researching the areas that we were going to travel to and looking for craftsmen or artists or blacksmiths or collectors and all that, so that probably on all the trips that we do, I probably try to do 2 to 3 different portraits.
So the key to this, if you're saying, okay, that's great, but how does this relate to me? The key to this is you had to do a couple sessions on spec first, right? Like you found a couple artists locally to get a couple of images. We threw them up on a website, on a landing page for our website, so that you could direct people to this page when you emailed them out of the blue with horrifying subject lines like, please don't throw me out, please read me. I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea these emails were going out. But it gave them some place to check it out. Like then they could go and see you're legitimate. We have a studio where.
And I had a body of work.
You had
I have a body of work that has some interesting environmental portraits. But it was a key for people to really react and go, okay, no problem.
Also, if you've watched any of our webinars talking about model calls and artist projects, you know, we believe in like applications. So that's another way that you can legitimize a project quickly, is to put a gateway on it, right? Like you might have to get a couple people in to build the portfolio building part of the project. But then when you put that gateway on there, it does legitimize a little bit. So now you have a questionnaire and you ask them things about themselves because you eventually want this to be a book or an exhibition or whatever. And so now we have their information.
The whole point and the reason why we're talking about this is that we want you to
be thinking about it now.
Yeah. Now for something that you can work on for next year or over the next few years, and to have something that you're passionate about, that you enjoy doing, that you're excited to talk to people about, and to have images that's a reflection of your own personality, that has truth to them and real, you know, because portraits really sing when they're a reflection of who you are. You know, that's when you get some depth to the images that you make. So, and with the purpose of going out and meeting these people, creating great images, but it's starting to get a life of its own. We're starting to get published in magazines. The images are being shown around the area. I am getting more commercial work. For example, this next year in January.
Okay, wait, can we come back to that though?
Okay.
I just want to talk, I just want to show them what you're talking about.
Okay.
So you call ahead before we go on a trip. And
I email
ahead.
people.
So just talk about a little bit, like literally 10 seconds. Who is that? What does he do?
Okay. He repairs high-end speakers.
Okay.
So I like people I like people that do something a little bit off the norm, you know, and that are interesting, and their environments are visually interesting, hopefully.
So you photograph artists.
Photograph a lot of artists. I'm always looking for artists to photograph.
I love your storytelling. Michael really believes in foreground, middle ground, and background. So I know you carefully placed that cat there in the foreground. And I know,
Well,
I know,
yeah.
I know. And so, and then you do a lot that is like, people don't realize this isn't, there's a lot of things in these creatives workshops, which is so fun, makes it exciting, but you are moving things around. You're not walking
Right.
in as a journalistic photographer.
Right. And you have to understand, I've been doing environmental portraits for 40 years, and the way I'm approaching these portraits, I'm trying to photograph everything with the 24 millimeter
You have,
GMAT.
you photographed
Yeah.
that's your challenge to yourself.
Yeah.
You only take one lens.
Yeah, I just take one lens, and because I see that way, so it comes naturally to me, but I want to make it harder. I want to encompass a lot of this environment and bring a lot of texture and detail and cropping and things like that into this image, which helps to tell the story about that person. So,
So
but so I'm bringing all these elements into it, but you have to place them in such a way because your eye still needs to get to the subject. It still needs to tell a story.
so in that regard, because people have 24 to 70s, 24 to 105, what is it about the 24 1.4 G Master that makes that like the only one you want?
Because there's beautiful sharpness from edge to edge. I don't seem to get distortion on the edges with the Sony lenses that I've gotten with other makers. There's beautiful clarity with the lens, and the way it matches up with that Sony body, of course, works really well. The focusing is fantastic. The clarity of colors and the ability for it to handle colors in different types of environments where there's different types of lighting.
Yeah.
You need to get the lighting on that face and that skin pure, but just to be able to handle all this other kind of stuff is fantastic.
And you may have said this, I don't know, but it just handles skin tones really well.
Beautifully.
That's not a function of the lens, it's the body also, but
right, with the sensor and
but that
everything.
lens, you always say that it looks like a telephoto, but it is a 24.
It's crazy like this. Again, it's with a 24 millimeter, but by using the f-stop, I think it was probably 2.4 or something like that. It looks like it could have been shot with a telephoto lens.
For sure.
And
then again, I just want to point out intentionally, you put like that the painting of the face in the foreground, kind of mimicking the one in the back on the wall, and like it's not
using colors too, because
right.
You're getting that square yellow in the background and the yellow in the foreground with the primary colors, and then the paints that are muted tan or whatever with that painting back there with that face in the back right hand side. So you're getting two different sets of triangles, but he's in the center,
right?
Yeah. So you're getting a visual rhythm to the portrait.
See, this is like picture number 5. Now you're not going to talk.
No,
you just go.
But you tell. But we got to keep moving.
No, I know we do. We have 4 minutes. So again,
Ellen Crone's strobe bounced off a wall that was 30 feet away because I wanted just the gentle semblance of directional light, speed light in the background, and then bringing paintings that she's done around her, using a lot of the primary colors.
A little speed light between her and the red wall is what.
Right. Yeah. Great little bit of depth. So red in the chair, red in the wall.
This is one of my favorites. You did this out in Colorado, and I hope that our viewers are able to really zoom in on this on their computer screens, because my favorite part about this is that darn Sony shooting practically in the dark, right? I can't get my mouse over there. Window light. But if you look at the gentleman's hand, like where the corner of that trunk, that little those tendrils of smoke
is incense.
Is incense
on the table
that the Sony picked up.
Right.
And it's tack sharp.
Yeah. And I wanted to leave it there because I felt it added a bit of what is that? See, I want people to look into these images and because I like, to me, a little bit of the visual complexity of these images, I don't want people just to glance at them and just move away. I want
Right.
to be able to see the subject, see the environment, and wonder about that person. So I don't mind leaving things in that portrait to make people wonder a little bit, because I want them to stay with it, stay with the image.
I think too, what's always interesting on I don't always go with you. I don't probably on most of them go with you, but on the ones I do, it's funny to me that they always start, I think they're nervous.
Mhm.
And so they always start by showing you something that somebody else has taken of them, right? Because as you're getting to work with bigger and bigger artists, which you have been lately,
Mhm.
they've already been photographed.
Mhm.
They've been in magazines, they have their own press, whatever. And so they always start with, well, like, this is what I use, right?
Mhm.
And I love that you are always like, okay, that's great. But you're never, ever, it's never going to look like something they already have, because you want this controlled chaos. You want to tell a much more interesting story. And I think that the artists are really, really responding to it.
It's
Like this
been
guy.
it's been kind of interesting that some of the artists that I've approached are really some big time artists, and they have said yes instantly.
Yeah.
Which I think speaks of the web page that we have. They've been looking at those images, so thankfully they like
Well,
that.
Lord knows they're not looking at your Instagram.
What's Instagram?
It would be so much easier if you would join the 21st century, babe.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm fine.
Here's the welder. We pulled up to this in the garage, maybe 10 by 15 garage. Like,
Yeah,
and I thought, oh, okay, how is he going to do this? But it's amazing and he loves it.
it's pretty instant.
Yeah. And just the cool, like, here's, this young farmer who, like, when you talk to him, we start finding out he's so passionate about what he feels is going to be a dying.
Vanishing breeds.
Yeah.
And he's struggling to make this generational farm survive, but he's bringing vanishing breeds onto his property to try to sustain them.
Right.
He had animals from Williamsburg,
Colonial Williamsburg
from
oxen.
Colonial Williamsburg, where we live, on
Mhm.
his property. And he said he loved this project because he says, it's Americana. You're photographing these different sorts of people. So
We've met car collectors, again, just trying to do them in very unique ways. He probably had 30 cars in his garage, but you didn't want to photograph 30. You wanted to tell one bold statement. Then we found this little tractor shed, and the window that you see behind him there is there's only one other window. It's in front of him. You can see the light falling on his face. It's that exact size. Those are the only two windows in that entire tractor shed. And you shot this without any strobes.
Mhm.
It's just the Sony picking it all up, picking up all the detail. And it's magnificent. I wish you guys could see the actual files on this stuff, because they're just so beautiful, and the detail and um, color and structure and everything. Just a joy to shoot, a joy to look at. Just so much amazing goodness in these stories. This is a original beatnik.
Original beatnik, yeah, from he would really help get the beatnik movement started. He's a former university professor and lives up near Cooperstown, New York.
Your Santa.
Yep, but he's also, as you can see, a wood carver and fascinating personality, and he's a part-time Lutheran minister. So we get to meet wonderful, interesting people.
And then most recently, I'm skipping ahead here. Most recently, this is one I got to go on with you, and I love this guy. He is a Native American sculptor, and he's
Yeah.
working on a huge top secret project in DC for an installation there. And hopefully we're gonna go down there next year when that gets installed. But you did some really killer images of him in his element. And then our last trip down to the Smoky Mountains, we had been there 6 months ago,
Mhm.
and you saw this place, and you were like, just this old kind of antique dump by the side of the road, and you were like, I gotta meet this guy, and it was always closed.
Yeah.
And then you
So
kept,
I got on Google Maps
yeah,
and went down the road that we drove
right,
and found the name of the business
right.
and
Emailed him,
emailed him,
nothing.
but he had not looked at his email for 2
So,
years.
so hold on. So you've been emailing.
Yeah.
So then we just went back again in October.
Yeah.
And you drove over there. So I'm telling this story because people give up too easily.
Mhm.
So you went over there and found him sleeping in one of the
Mhm.
rooms of his shed and said, hey, I've been dying to photograph you. I've been emailing you. And that's when he said, well, I don't use my email, but look at this.
But the thing is, you have to be genuine. You have to be excited about what you do. You can't be scared and tentative and wishy-washy. You got to be yourself. But, and I'm excited about meeting these people.
Yeah.
And these people can tell.
And he was just a great, great, great guy. So hopefully today we've given you.
But just real
sorry,
quick,
let me go back.
but just real quick. So I'm going to continue to do this.
Yes.
And I suspect that it's going to wind up being a book.
Okay.
Probably another year or two of doing images. But in the meantime, we've been picking up jobs, and some really big jobs commercially, because people are seeing this work. One job, for example, is we're really going to start in January, just reinventing the city of Portsmouth, because one of our good friends is the
city of Portsmouth has hired you
Yeah.
to, like, I'll just help you. The city of Portsmouth has hired you to basically reinvent their persona and their reputation, their personality. And so they're bringing you in, they're commissioning you to do a series of personality portraits of people in their tech. Exactly.
like this,
Mhm,
exactly
mhm.
like these portraits.
To really give their city a new
Tell the world that there's interesting people
substance.
in Portsmouth, and it's an interesting place to go and visit. And so there's value to doing this. There's value to doing artist project, because it works your visual muscles out, but it also gives you something you're excited to talk about, and helps you bring in new business.
So, in conclusion, get back here to it. Here we go. So hopefully we've given you a lot of things to think about on this 11th of December, when your mind is crazy with lab orders and just trying to get cards out the door and everything else. But 24 has a ton of possibility ahead of you, and hopefully we've given you things to think about, being intentional on the business side. Michael's given you some incredible ideas for, not that you have to do what he's doing, but just the way he's thinking about art and trying to just always stay shooting and moving and that kind of thing. And hopefully we'll see more webinars on that next year. But in the meanwhile, think about your word of the year. Michael, think about your word of the year. Message me on Instagram. Let me know what it is. I'm still undecided. Keep in touch. Finish this year strong. And I know that 2024 is going to be your best year yet.
Yeah.
If we make it out of the hospital, it'll be our best year yet. And we just thank you, B&H, for allowing us this platform to share throughout the year. And thank you to Sony for not only providing the gear that just makes us be able to do what we love for a living, but investing in our industry and providing education like this for you guys too. So hopefully you found it valuable. We thank you, and we'll see you next year. Bye.